Hi everyone. In this week's module, we're going to study the concepts of line type and line weight. First, we'll talk about the alphabet of lines, different types of line types that you can use. Then we'll talk about line weight. And finally, I'm going to demonstrate both of those to you in AutoCAD. Let's get started. The alphabet of lines is one of the standard tools that you use to help communicate your design ideas through a technical drawing. There are some standard line types, and we're about to go over them. So the first one is an object line, right here. And it is just simply a solid line of a medium thickness, and it's used to define the shape of an object. A hidden line is a dashed line, and it's used to show anything that's behind something else. It's hidden, you can't see it, but in our technical drawing, we'd like to indicate where that item is. You use a hidden line. Next is a center line. A center line is a longer dash and then a short dash. Long, short, long, short. It's used, this one says it's used to locate the center points of arcs and circles, but it's also used to indicate the midpoint or center point of any other kind of item also. So if you are, for example, dimensioning to the center line of a bathroom fixture, you would use the center line type. On this next slide, you see a dimension line and extension line and leader lines. We're going to talk in far more detail about dimensions and leaders in another week or two when your textbook chapter gets there. But you can tell that they look slightly different, and we use them again to communicate the size and location of items. A break line, moving down to the next one here, is a line and it's got a zigzag and then continues. All right. We've talked about it briefly in class before, and what it is to show a cut or a break or a stop in continuity in your drawing. Here's some more details about these different types of lines. This is from a different source, but it's got the same idea. The first section here is on solid lines. The last source called them object lines, but again, they show the edge or the form of an object. And it can be of varying line weights depending on the visual depth that you would like to convey. Next is dashed lines. We call them hidden lines. Short, closely spaced strokes, and they indicate things that are hidden from our view. But take a look, you can have different scales of dash, and that might indicate different things in your drawing. Here's another example of center lines. You're going to have a long dash and then a short dash, long and short, and you'll identify the center or the symmetrical axis of an object. Here is another example of a break line. You can see that this uses a little squiggle rather than a sharp zigzag. You've got a long segment, short zigzag stroke, and it's used to cut off a portion of a drawing. Here's a couple of line types that weren't shown in the last source, and one is a property line. This is for a site plan, and you are delineating the edge of a plot of land, a parcel of land, and it's fairly standard that property lines are shown by one long dash and then two short dashes. again used for site plans or property plans. Here's an example of some utility lines, and it is shown by a long dash and then a letter, and then a long dash. And by the way, it would be the same letter every time. This is showing 3 different examples. In the legend, you would then find out what that letter represented. It's probably, in this case, sewer, water, and gas lines. Let's take a look at some of these different line types in an example drawing. This is what we're looking at is a plan view of a corner of a building. And so we're seeing the wall come right here and turn the corner and go down. The dashed line is going to show the foundation underneath. And this part here would be a window. So first let's take a look at object lines. Object lines are being used to show the edges or the profile of the wall right here. They're also being used to show the window. So object lines, plain old solid line. Hidden lines are dashed lines, and they're used to show things that you can't see but we'd like to indicate. In this case, the designer wanted to show the foundation so that they could add this note about it, 20-inch by 8-inch footing. And so they've used a hidden line or a dashed line to show that foundation. Here are a dimension line and extension line used to indicate the location of an item. And we're also using a center line right here. If you can see, it's a long dash, short dash, long dash. That's indicated, that is indicating that we are measuring to the center of the window. If we didn't use the center line type for that extension line of the dimension, then we would have to use some other way to say, hey, we are measuring exactly to the center of that window. And finally on this drawing is a break line, and you can see where it's used right here at the edge of the drawing to say, okay, we're stopping the drawing, but in real life, the object continues. That's what the break line is used for. It's also in this drawing over here on the right. So you can see that you can use multiple of them if you need to. Here's another example. This one is a full sheet of drawing. It's a plot plan. And we can see that object lines or solid lines have been used for most of the drawing. Okay, so right here, this is the outline of the building. Here is a driveway. Here's a sidewalk. And what else do we have? We have a contour line, which is as the grade of the site is sloping down. Let's see where some other types of lines are. First of all, let's look at the property lines. We got a long dash and 2 short dashes, long dash, 2 short dashes, to show where the property line is. It's right here. And it goes all the way around. Property line and property line. There are some utilities lines. They're using a different system than the other source that I showed you. And the important thing is when you use a line type like that to indicate a specific item, such as your water or your sewer, you would then need to list it in a legend so that everybody knows what you're talking about. And finally, you can see that there are dimension lines right here and extension lines. So several different types of lines in this drawing. I don't see any hidden lines not used in this drawing. But it's an example of how all of these can be put together in order to convey the information that you need your drawing to convey. Thanks, everyone.